Hey, what's up, guys? Mr. Opak here for lesson 7.1 part 2 homework help video. Looking at this, so the front side were just equations with variables on both sides, so very similar to the work we were doing last week. Just want to give you a quick review on that from over the weekend. So looking at one, if you're doing it at the method 2, or the new school as we would call it, you're going to draw a line down the middle. You have variables, you have constants, and an equal sign. Negative 20n is a variable, so you're going to keep it on the variable side, and you don't change the sign. 10 is a constant, so it would stay on this side. Negative 13n is a variable, so move it over, but if you cross the line, change the sign. So now it's a positive 13n, and negative 8n is a variable, so move it over and change the sign to a positive. So then we have negative 20 plus 13 would be negative 7n plus 8n equals 10, and then we have negative 7 plus 8 would be positive 1n equals 10. So your answer here is n equals 10. Okay. So to show you one more, if I'm looking at number 5, draw a line down the middle, and I would have variables, constants. Again, if you're doing it the old school way, you would just combine like terms first. So we got variable, which is 5m, so 5m, just bring it down. Negative 10 is a constant, move it over, change it to positive. This is a plus 10, move it over, change the sign to negative. And that's plus 40, so move it over, change your sign to a negative. M is a variable, move it over, change your sign. And 16 is a constant, drop it. So 5m minus 4, or minus 1m is 4m, equals 10 minus 10 cancels. Negative 40 plus 16 would be negative 24. Divide both sides by 4, and m equals negative 6. Okay. Now that's the front side, which is kind of a review from last week. Going to the back side, this is more 7.1 part 2. So look at number 11. The very first thing you got to do is you got to do the inverse operation. You want to isolate x. So in order to isolate x, you're going to do the inverse operation of squaring, which is just square root. I'm going to square root. And what I do to one side, I got to do the other, so I square root this side. The square root and the square cancel because they're inverse operations, and I'm left with x is equal to, well, the square root of 100 is 10. But because this is an equation and you're looking for an x squared equals 100, there's actually two numbers that would work. 10 would work, or negative 10, because 10 squared is 100 and negative 10 squared is 100. So we're going to say it's plus or minus 10. Going to number 14. That's x cubed equals 125, so it's a cube now. So what's the inverse to isolate x? You got to do the inverse of cubing, which is cube root. And what I do to one side, I got to do to the other. Now the cube root and the cube, they cancel. That's your main objective, is to get that x alone. And then the cube root of 125 is 5. Now don't get it confused. When you cube, if I was to say it's not positive or negative here, it's just positive, because negative 5 cubed would actually equal negative 125, which is not that. So that won't work. It's just simply positive. Going to 17, 22 equals x squared. Again, same thing. Do the inverse our goal is to isolate that x, so do the inverse operation of squaring, which is the square root. And what I do to one side, I got to do to the other. The square root and the square cancel, leaving this x equals the square root of 22. This is where you'd have to draw that number line. If you remember, draw a number line. Square root of 22 is between which two perfect square roots? It's between 16 and 25, which is 4 and 5. The middle is 4.5. The middle here is 20.5. So 22 would fall just after it. So I would say it's x is approximately, not equal to, x is approximately plus or minus 4.7. Because the square root of 22 would be about right here. And that's probably about 4.75. So right at 4.7. Look at number 20. X squared plus 4 equals 64. So if I'm looking at that, first step, I'd have to subtract 4 first to isolate x squared. That cancels. I got x squared is equal to 64 minus 4 would be 60. And from there, do the inverse operation of both of those, which is squaring. X equals, or x is approximately, because 60 is not a perfect square root, x is approximately That's going to be approximately 7.7, and it's going to be plus or minus 7.7 because it's a square. Okay, last one, x squared equals 49 over 196. Same thing here. Don't get freaked out by our fraction. Do the inverse, where our main goal is to isolate x. So we're going to do the inverse operation of squaring, which is to square root. What I do to one side, I do to the other. The square root and the square cancel. X is equal to them. You can rewrite that as the square root of 49 over the square root of 196. And then x equals square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 196 is 14, which simplifies to a half. So x equals plus or minus 1/2. That completes this homework help video for lesson 7.1 part 2. Hope it helps and have a good evening.